Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Exact Digital Podcast. If you are interested in digital marketing, entrepreneurship, or just love hearing how business grows and adapts, you're definitely in the right place. So today I'm excited to chat with someone who truly understands the marketing game, Carl Willis. He's the founder and CEO of Simplicity Marketing, LLC, and he literally told me that I could introduce him as the lead strategist. So we know he's humble. His agency specializes in helping home remodeling and insurance businesses thriving online through smart SEO, PPC, and AI-driven strategies. But beyond running a successful agency, Carl actually has a podcast of his own and is a big believer in content to build trust and authority. We're going to talk about how he went from financial advising to leading a marketing agency, the biggest challenges in digital space right now, and where he sees the industry going next. Carl, thanks for being here and welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kenzie. Thank you for having me today.
Wonderful. Yeah, when we talked the other day, he was just, first of all, he has the podcast voice. And if he runs his own podcast, this is just going to be so smooth. I'm excited.
Excellent. Yeah, we're going to have fun today in our conversation. So I'm looking forward to everything we dive into today. And so thank you again for having me, and plan on putting a lot of value out in front of the audience today.
Perfect. It's our pleasure. So you run multiple podcasts yourself. That's what you've started to really hyper focus on right now. What made you interested in joining our podcast today?
Well, podcasting is such a great medium to connect with consumers today. So much content is being consumed through podcast, through online audible books, podcast, video content. And so it's really something that, I wanted to lean into, and in my world, my target audience are huge ebook and podcast listeners. And so it's a great place for me to connect with my audience. It's a great place to connect with movers and thinkers and thought leaders and business leaders, because that's really where they are maximizing their time. We all multitask, and most of the business leaders I know are like me. Instead of listening to their favorite songs in the car now, they're listening to podcasts and ebooks. They're doing the same thing when they work out. So they are utilizing their time efficiently to learn as they go. They're not allowing that time to be dead space anymore. And so podcasting is a great way to engage that audience and present them some great value while they are in that mode of learning.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I work out, I'm always got a podcast in, because that's the only time you can truly focus on what they're saying. Or like if you're driving or something that's like not taking up a lot of space in your brain, and you can focus on those words, and it almost keeps you encouraged. Like if you're doing a workout and it's like one of those encouragement books or marketing things, it's like, oh, I'm going to do it tomorrow. It's
exactly. Yeah, because it's the place where we're not focused on 10 other things. And I know for me, some of my greatest takeaways have come from those workout podcasts and those road trips, windshield time, where I'm listening to an audiobook or a series of podcasts. And even at night, laughingly, my bedtime routine is I watch YouTube podcasts, as I'm getting ready to go to sleep, and still feeding my brain in kind of that space where I'm not occupied with other things. And so it's a great mechanism to connect with the right audience.
Absolutely. And with all that knowledge out there, like, why not?
Absolutely.
Why not? So can you share a little bit about your background and what led you from being a financial advisor into advising digital marketing?
Yeah, it was really two things. I've been a financial advisor for a number of years. And if you go back to 2008, 2009, we went through the housing bubble. And one of the things that was happening was that the Federal Reserve began to dump $80 billion per month of treasury notes into the markets. And so they were actually propping up the markets. And I did not want to continue to manage people's wealth in markets that were being artificially propped up. And so I decided to close down my practice. Now, the other piece of that was I was kind of looking at other things that I was passionate about in life, and I've got some philanthropic and ministry things that I like doing in places like Africa and India and things like that. So I wanted to have the freedom to work from anywhere in the world. And as a financial advisor, I couldn't do that. It wasn't portable, scalable, reproducible, and digital marketing certainly fit that bill. And so that was the decision that I made, was to go ahead and go full force into digital marketing. And it's something I had tinkered with for a number of years. So back in the mid 90s, in the dial-up days, I actually started selling vases on eBay in a drop shipping method. And it was a horrible disaster because the fulfillment was terrible, the communication was terrible, but the idea had always been there. And so I had been flirting around with online businesses for years, just never anything serious. But I decided, you know what, now's the time. I'm going to learn this stuff. I'm going to figure it out. And just what we were talking about, learning through podcasts and things like that, I self-taught myself the skills and concepts of online marketing watching YouTube late at night with a laptop. And so I would learn, do, rinse, repeat, fine tune, get something moving. Okay, I got it to this point. Now I go find another video that would teach me the next step, and off I would go. And I just continued to fine tune the process until I was satisfied with the results.
That's amazing and very impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I definitely have to keep myself updated because everything's constantly changing. So honestly, the way you've done it is perfect, because then you could just keep on and keep on and keep on. Awesome.
Absolutely. And I still do that. I still will go out because you're right. Everything is changing. And so I want to know what's the newest thing that's happening. So I'm constantly watching updated videos. I'm listening to podcasts. I mastermind with a group of agency owners every 4 months, and we all throw up on our laptops, for 3 days. And okay, what are you doing? And what are you doing? And what's working now? We have to do that to stay sharp because the environment is changing so quickly. And methods are changing rapidly, and so principles are always the same, but methodologies, tactics, strategies are always in evolution, and we want to stay sharp on those things.
Right. Kind of going back to your financial advisor days and the methodology, that kind of like some of it stays the same. Would you say that being a financial advisor has kind of helped you and assisted you with explaining people's budgets to them and saying, like, this is, what you should do with your marketing? And how would you scale that, and in a way that, if someone wanted to grow X amount in a year versus someone who wanted to grow 10 times that amount, what would the budget difference be, and what would be a number that you would give somebody?
Yeah, I think where financial advising really helped is understanding the core motivation of the business owner that I'm working with. So whereas a lot of agency owners get stuck in talking about clicks and movement on your keywords, business owners don't care about that. Business owners care about, did my revenue grow? Am I making more profit this year? What does my cash flow look like? Do I have more money to reinvest back into my business or to expand my business with? And so my discussions as a marketer are a little different. I talk more from that level. If we apply this strategy, here's the impact on the bottom line, and the return on investment is going to be this type of multiple if we use this type of strategy, as opposed to this type of multiple if we go this direction. And so a lot of my discussion comes more down to the I call it the higher level discussion. And sometimes I win those competitions because my competitors are still busy talking about search engine optimization techniques, and they're boring their clients to death. The client doesn't care. A client cares about, is my phone going to ring? Am I going to sell more stuff? And am I going to make more money next year? And so if I can answer that question, if I can present a compelling, case and a compelling roadmap to how we're going to make that happen, I'm going to win that contest most of the time.
That's very, 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 very true. Because at the end of the day, it is about, them making their revenue and their money and growing with us, because you can spit all these fancy numbers at them and say, well, look, it's tracking here, give it time. But if it goes here and blah, 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 they don't care.
That's right.
They want to make money. And I understand. And we're here to provide them a service. So I love that outlook. That's great.
Absolutely. And I think we have to keep it simple, Kenzie. My favorite illustration that I love to give business owners is your marketing should be an investment. So for every dollar you put out in the marketing universe, there should be multiples of that dollar coming back to you. If there's not, then you've got to retool your strategy. If you're getting a 1-to-1 return, it's not a good return. If you're getting less than a 1 return, it's not a good return. So we've always got to be evaluating, are we returning multiples of the investment? So if you're spending $10,000 with us this month, we better be returning multiples of that. And that's, really at the end of the day, that's the kind of math discussion we have to be having with our clients is, are we creating that ATM machine for you that you come and put your card in and we're returning cash back to you from what we're doing as a marketing agency?
That's a really good analogy. I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Feel free to take that. To you out there, feel free to take that. You have my permission. I'm sure I stole it from somewhere else.
Yeah, literally. A lot of people will be like, can I take this quote from you? And I'm like, I didn't make it up, so sure, fine.
That's right, yeah. I've heard it said before. It's now yours.
Sure, we're just passing on the knowledge.
That's right.
Yeah. So your agency has 2 main verticals, which is home remodeling and insurance. What made you decide on those specific verticals, and why did you niche down originally?
Yeah, so we had a generalist agency. Simplicity Marketing was the generalist agency. And we were working, like most generalist agencies. We had the restaurant and the attorney and the chiropractor and the construction company and the garage door company. And so you were always having to learn everybody's business as you went. And it was, great business. But we kept finding ourselves just maintaining at a certain level, kind of hit a revenue ceiling that we just really weren't moving past. And I really wanted to move beyond that ceiling. And so I started reading a couple of books and really recognized the power of focusing down. One niche, one offering, in some cases even one service. We didn't go quite that narrow focused, but we did say, all right, let's narrow down to one vertical, and let's reproduce systems. Let's reproduce service offerings. Let's use a lot of the same strategies and tactics client to client. What we really have to learn is the competitors, the demographics of the market, the economic data, those kinds of things. But we can reproduce a lot of our systems. We can reuse a lot of our same tools. And so we can be much more efficient in our ramp up. We can produce a result much quicker. And so that's what we chose to do. So we started with the remodeling agency and we launched it. And then I was the white label PPC provider for the insurance agency, and the owner decided to retire and offered me the opportunity to buy out the agency. And I loved the team. I had been working with the team for about 4 years, and so I wanted the team. That was a system. And so purchased that agency, and that's how we ended up in 2 verticals. And has worked very well. We were able to reproduce systems and scale and work, cross country or even internationally if we wanted to, using those same systems, same strategies, conversion optimizations, targeting, metrics are very similar. And so we're not having to relearn everything. And we still use our generalist agency from time to time. If we see a good opportunity come across, somebody comes to us and says, I've been referred to you by one of your current clients, and we look at their business and say, yeah, I think it could be a good relationship. We'll still handle that under our generalist agency, but we really try to stay pretty clean to the vertical, because that's where we're building our momentum. And our podcasts are both in that, those 2 verticals. And so that's really where we have our reputation, and that's where we have all of our momentum at this point.
Good. So what would be your advice to somebody that wanted to scale up, say like they're doing what you do now, and they wanted to grow that, but they don't have like the time investment? Would you say that it's worth the investment to have an in-house person to extend those digital offerings? Or would you suggest maybe outsourcing for somebody that really focuses on those tactics so that they're an expert in it?
No, go ahead and outsource. That's, I grew my agency as a one-man operator as a generalist, and I outsourced the things that I wasn't strong in. So graphic design, not a strength. Websites, I can build them, but I don't enjoy it. So I outsourced those things. SEO, pay-per-click, social ads, those are things I can do day and night. Don't mind doing that. So I would do those things. But then as we grew, we got to a point where I had to change hats and stop being an operator and really be a business owner. And so if we were going to scale, I had to get out of the delivery side of the business, and I had to start being the driver of the business. And so at that point, I started bringing in specialists and outsourcing the work to those specialists. Now we have an in-house team. Everybody's remote, but it's an in-house team, and everybody's a specialist in what they do. My job is to go be the face of the place and drive the business forward. And so that's, everybody's got their assignments. But for somebody who's looking to scale, you only have so much time, and time is your most valuable asset. And you can only scale if you are working on the business and not in the business. And so if 90% of your time is on deliverables, you're not going to grow because you are the bottleneck. And so you've got to decide what can you hand off. And here's where you're going to struggle, because you're probably a perfectionist. And so the truth is, nobody can do it as good as you can. But when you're scaling, somebody doing it 80% as good as you can is 100% good enough. And so put your systems in place. Write your SOPs so that deliverable turns out the way you want it to, time and time again, and then let somebody else start delivering that, because your time is better spent somewhere else.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. Because in this world of so much ways to present ads digitally, it's kind of impossible to know everything about every single thing. And if you just allow the people that focus their entire day on that specific tactic, say it's streaming audio, connected TV, whatever that may be, that's what they do. You do what you do, and they do what they do. And honestly, in the end, it benefits both of you more than anything, I think.
I think so, Kenzie. And I think the important thing for you as the driver of the business is understand strategy. So understand from a 30,000 foot view how everything works and how it works together. but you don't need to know the fine details of how everything works. I have not intimately run Google ad campaigns for a long time. Google tags make my head spin. I have somebody that's an expert in that, and I brought ad specialists in years ago because it was getting too complex for me to stay up to date on it and continue to drive the business forward. And that's going to be, again, the hard thing for anybody listening is you've got stuff you just love. I mean, the truth is you enjoy it. That's why you started doing this to begin with. You either liked building websites or running ad campaigns or whatever your thing was. And so the truth is, if you had the opportunity, you would just tinker and do that anyway. But it's not the highest and best use of your time. And that's a point I want to emphasize. You as a business owner have to decide every day, is this the highest and best use of my time? And you building the website or you getting in the middle of the operational stuff is not the highest and best use of your time. The highest and best use of your time is moving your business forward.
Absolutely. I know it's cliche, but time really is money.
Yes.
Yeah. So you really emphasize, back when we were having a conversation earlier, you emphasize content marketing really heavily. So why do you believe it's such a powerful lead generation tool?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in a principle called content to commerce. And I believe in that for a couple of reasons. My real philosophy of marketing is attraction marketing. I believe the best marketing is you deliver value. You position yourself as the expert and the authority in your particular niche or industry. And you allow the people who are looking for what it is you have to offer to rise to the surface as they interact with your content because you are the expert. When experts make recommendations, people don't question those recommendations. They just do it. When Dr. Oz shows up on Oprah and says, hey, go buy this weight loss tablet, it sells out. Nobody questions that. He's the expert. And that's really the philosophy of marketing that I practice. It's the philosophy of marketing that I teach. It's what I've implemented in my own businesses. It's part of the reason I like podcasting and I like video and I like ebooks and I like all of those things. It positions you as an expert and an authority, and psychologically it locks into the mind of the consumer. And so it just positions you, and it breaks down resistance, and it makes it much easier to cross the commerce barrier because you already have that position. Now you're not selling, you're making recommendations because you're answering questions, you're answering objections, you're dealing with fears, you're dealing with frustrations, you're talking about pain points. So all of those things you would do naturally in the sales process, you're doing through your content, and you are paving the path to that commerce relationship. And I know, Kenzie, you and I talked about this in our preliminary call. My favorite thing about the way we do this is when clients come to us, my favorite conversation is, hey, I've been listening to your stuff for the last year and a half. I read every email you send. I've been on your blog. I'm watching your videos right now. Great, you're my favorite customer because you'll stay with me for the next 10 years. You're not going anywhere. You've bought into us. You have decided we know more than anybody else, and we are your go-to experts on the industry and on this topic, and that's what we want. We don't want you shopping around. We don't want you coming to us on a price, comparison journey. We want you coming to us because you're looking for the best of the best, and in your research, you've decided we are the best of the best because every time you ask a question, your question leads you to our content. and we're the voice you keep hearing and reading and seeing, and that's what we want.
Yeah, exactly. And that even goes along with you as business owners, the clients that you're working with. People don't buy into fake showy performance anymore because it's everywhere. So what is now abnormal is human connection, which is really strange to say, but being in front of somebody and actually having a conversation with them, or seeing them have just a normal conversation over, a short little video on Instagram or a long podcast, you recognize, oh, there's feelings, emotions there that we don't get through an email or like just a plain ad, So the world's changing and we have to change with it.
It is. And Kenzie, we can have so much fun with this. My clients, we have a running joke. So I tell them when they start to work with us, hey, if you're on a call with me, you'll know if I'm talking with clients today or I've got a sales call because I'll be wearing a shirt with a collar. But if you call me out of the blue, I'm probably going to be in a T-shirt.
Guys, he's got a collar on right now.
Yeah, that's right. It's become the running joke. Like, this is on today because we're talking and I've got a client meeting later today. That's the running joke, but it makes it personal. And part of what content does is it makes you personal. People do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And we forget that people buy first out of emotion and then they back it up with logic. And so at the end of the day, I'm making that buying decision based on how I feel about you first. And then I'm going to support it with all the logical things about price and your reviews and all that. But all of those things still come into how do I feel about you? And so content is building that trust level, that confidence level, that sense of peace in the relationship.
Absolutely. So you can kind of pivot that into this question, but many businesses struggle with creating video content. They're afraid. They think it's this huge, long process. And we kind of discussed about this in our preliminary call, but what would you say to a business owner who is hesitant to create video content?
Get over yourself. Just get over yourself. In fact, the way I think I put it on our preliminary call was my comment that I make to our clients is just take your stupid smartphone, turn it around and put record and start talking. Your audience needs to hear from you. You're just going to have to get over yourself. That is the mode of communication in today's world. The most consumed form of content today is video. And the algorithms at Meta, at Instagram, at YouTube, at, even on Google, short form video is the number one piece of consumed content. That's what the algorithms are actually looking for. Organically, it will get more exposure. And I always challenge our business owners with this. Go post a still picture and then go post a 15-second or 30-second video of yourself. I don't care if all you're saying is good morning, thanks for tuning in, thanks for being our customer, goodbye. Post that video and trust me, you'll get more organic exposure out of the video. The algorithm is going to honor that video. And so people are missing a lot of free visibility because they simply are not talking to their audience. And the whole reason they're not doing it is they're just afraid. And it's a fear factor they've got to just simply get over. And part of what I tell, our clients is don't worry about what to say. Just hit record and start talking. And there's so many great tools out there that will chop up your longer videos and turn them into these nice, pretty short reels. They'll even throw the captions on. And now you've got plenty of content to post up. But the algorithm is going to look at it. And the most important thing is it's going to stop the scroll. And in today's world, that's what we're trying to do is stop the scroll. We're trying to stop that bored person who, like it or not, is either sitting on their toilet, sitting at a stoplight, or sitting at their kid's ball game with their phone, scrolling, and we're trying to get their attention.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely on the toilet for sure.
Even though they won't admit it, that's what they're doing.
Hey, we're all human here, right? But yeah, no, I think sometimes as marketers, we get ahead of ourselves because we have all these fancy tools and strategies and all these things. And you have to peel back the layers and remember, okay, I'm a human being. What would I convert with? What would make me stay for a little bit longer? And me personally is just somebody speaking to the camera.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, this person couldn't have AI'd this. This person couldn't have, like this is someone that I feel like I'm FaceTiming right now. So I had a client that went from Meta display ads to Meta video. Their click-through rate literally went from a 1.2% to a 4.6% in a week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the other thing I think you have to remember too, Kenzie. We went through a year where we all had this.
Right.
We had our faces hidden behind masks. And so the algorithms are looking for human faces. So even in your still images, if you take a picture of a landmark and you put that side by side with a picture of the same landmark, but you have somebody in the picture and their face is in that picture, the picture with the person's face will actually get better organic exposure because the algorithm recognizes there's a human face in the picture. And people are craving human interaction because we spent a year in isolation. And so whether we realize that or not, psychologically, people are craving that human interaction.
Yes, 100%. And like the video that they created was just some short little clip that they made in their office. And it was just a TikTok trend that they went along with. And it was, I mean, iPhone cameras are great. So it's just wonderful. And also you mentioned captions. Huge thing. You're like 60% more likely to interact with something with captions because you might be in a public space and you might not have your sound on, or you could be deaf, so it's
right.
Including more people. And the algorithm is looking for that.
Yeah, it is. In fact, statistics are telling us that the majority of video is watched with the sound off. So back to the scroll, most people will just watch and they'll watch the video without the sound, and then if it's interesting enough, they'll click onto the video and turn the sound on. So, yeah, you want to use those captions for sure.
Absolutely. It's funny because you have to also remember that you're not your target audience, because I always turn the sound on because I'm obsessed with knowing everything, but most people I know do not have the sound on. So that study stands strong for sure.
Yes.
So you mentioned that your biggest lead generation is in ebooks. Can you talk a little bit about the structure of your marketing ecosystem to convert leads?
Yeah. So number one, thanks for using the term ecosystem, because that's my favorite term when we talk about marketing. Because in today's world, your prospects are multiple modality. They're on smartphones, they're on tablets, they're on laptops, and they are using audio, they are using visual, they are using written, they are using multiple platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, blogs, and so they are devouring content from all different directions. And so when we talk about the ecosystem, that's what the ecosystem looks like. And so the center of your universe is going to be your website or your landing page, wherever you're going to transact business. And so I always, talk about that's the sun. That's what everything's going to revolve around. And so everything needs to drive into the center of the ecosystem, but then from the ecosystem, you're going to drive everything back out to those other properties. And so when we do lead generation, of course, the money's always in the list. And so we want to look for what's the quickest way to build the list. For us, we find ebooks work extremely well. We love using ebooks. We want to understand what are the pain points or the hot spots for our audience right now. Again, a little nugget for our audience. Our best converting ebook right now is an AI guide for each of our verticals. So we have one that's AI marketing tools for home remodeling companies. That one we're landing leads at $5.52 a lead. So it's highly effective. Just generate leads all day long with that thing. And so what we do with that is we get those names on the list, and then guess what we're doing? We're sending them into the ecosystem. Hey, connect with us on Facebook. Go watch the YouTube video. We have a 1-year follow-up sequence. The 1-year follow-up sequence is, guess what? Every video we do, every webinar we do, every podcast we do, we are just putting our content in front of that audience. We are feeding them a steady diet of expertise, authority, and trust. Now, if you're studying, of course, you're all savvy marketers. We all know that what does Google look for? Experience, expertise, authority, and trust. So we're building that same formula into our ecosystem. And we're just simply using that in our follow-up mechanisms so that that trust level is already high. So by the time a person decides, you know what, I'm ready to call you, they've already made the decision. You are the expert. You do have the experience. You are the authority in the field, and I trust you. So the only question that they really want to know when they call is how much is this going to cost? And when can I get started? So it's a very simple conversation. We're not having to deal with objections because we've already dealt with all of those in our content. And so that's the purpose behind that.
Absolutely. Because, thinking about an ecosystem, agencies would get clients through that ecosystem, but it's similar to the ecosystem that they're going to be using for the clients that they then get for their campaigns, because there's multiple touch points that need to happen. Someone's not just going to be at the bottom of the funnel. They might be, but not everyone. So having something on streaming TV, something on social media, maybe a gas station TV, and then retargeting those people that have interacted with it so that it pushes them slowly down a funnel, because it takes at least 5 to 7 touch points to convert anybody.
Oh, yeah.
So it's similar logics there.
Similar logic. In fact, it's really insightful, Kenzie. We had a client a few years ago that sold, interesting, I live in Kansas, so this will make sense. They sold replacement hay baler belts for hay baling equipment. Sexy item. But when we studied their analytics, over 50% of their sales came after the 12th touch. So if you don't have that ecosystem rolling, if you're doing a 1-touch, 2-touch, 3-touch, they would have lost over 50% of their sales. The ecosystem has to be in motion. You've got to be everywhere that prospective client is, and that's why the ecosystem is so important. So yes, I want to get you into my lead system. I want to hook you, with an ebook or a checklist or whatever it is to get you onto the list. Because once I have the list, now I can upload you into my retargeting campaigns. I can follow you all around Google and Facebook and everywhere else. I can continue to email you. I can continue to send you webinar notices, podcast notices, and really engage you from multiple directions.
Right. Because, there's squirrels running around everywhere these days.
That's right.
Distracting everybody. So with your AI-driven approach to SEO and PPC, how has AI changed the way that you structure campaigns for your clients?
Yeah, so, Google rolled out their generative AI last year. They began testing it in 2023, and we began to really look at that and realize that it was going to change the landscape of paid ads. It was going to change the landscape of SEO. And so we began to reverse engineer it. And, being a child of the 80s, I began to look at that and said, well, I watch Terminator movies, and so when the first Terminator shows up, you have to send another Terminator to deal with it. So, I got to looking at that, and the folks at ChatGPT did me a great favor. They rolled out custom GPTs. And so we began to reverse engineer Google's generative AI using ChatGPT as our AI. And we began to kind of reverse engineer what would happen if we did this and what would happen if we did this. How would it affect search rankings, or how would it affect ad performance? And so we began to use the AI as really a, if you will, virtual CMO to help us fine tune strategy based on what Google's AI was doing with their algorithms. And then they did us a great favor in May of last year. They had a 3.5 hour, parade of their whole AI process. And so we took the transcript and fed that into our AI and said, now, based on this information, adjust our strategy accordingly, which it did. And so that being said, what we've really done with that is we've done a couple of things. Is we've used that AI CMO concept with every client. So we have it analyze demographic data, economic data, competitor data, keyword data, ranking data, ad performance data. And then we'll say, here's the strategy that we're wanting to implement. What refinements would you then make to that strategy based on the data you have? And we'll let the AI make its recommendations, and we'll deploy that. Second thing that we noticed is Google's AI loves signals. And so we started looking at how can we create more signals across the ecosystem for Google's AI to respond to. Because what we believed was the case and what we saw to be the case was Google's AI is looking at, all right, your keyword data is such that you should rank well. However, we're going to look at the bigger universe and make sure there is validation to those rankings. If you're good enough to be number 1, 2, or 3, you should have this fan base out here at LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else that is creating noise that confirms that you deserve those rankings. And so we started to test that idea and saw that worked. And so we're seeing that. And then we also said, well, if that's happening on Google, it's probably happening on Meta as well. And so we began to, test those same ideas and concepts on the Facebook platform and said, yeah, a lot of those same things are happening there. So the way we're really using, AI to inform our strategy is looking at where can we get competitive advantages based on how the AI is informing us. And I'll give you a great case study example, and this is where I want to encourage the audience, don't overlook how AI can help you in some of these things. We've got a client that on their Google business profile, they're an insurance agent. I won't tell you which company they work for, but like a good neighbor, their competitor also works for the same company and is on the same street 4 blocks closer to city center. So 2 agents, same company, 4 blocks apart, same street. And our client always ranks behind the other agent, even though our client's been an agent for 42 years, has over 350 reviews, 5-star. The other agent's been an agent for 20 years, has 140 reviews, 5-star. So the only difference is 4 blocks. So we fed that to the AI and said, how come Google continues to give preference? It seems to be because of location. Help us overcome that. And so we let the AI solve that for us. And so the AI gave us a strategy to combat that preference to a 4-block proximity to city center. And so we deployed that, and we were able to overcome that bias on the part of the Google algorithm. And so that's where we use AI strategically to help us solve things that in our normal strategy, we're doing all the right things, but it's not moving the needle the way we want it to.
Wow, that's genius. I love that. So You kind of just touched on a little bit of like struggles and stuff, but what would you say the biggest challenges that your clients are facing today?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that our clients are facing today is a couple. Number one, it's highly competitive, and the landscape is changing. And there is so much changing even in the world of marketing. If you look at how even Google is changing their landscape. So now, it's not just your local search results. It's, are you Google guaranteed? Because now there's a separate set of search results for that. And not just are you Google guaranteed, but are you running LSAs? And if you're running LSAs, well, then you get preferential treatment there. And so, we have to educate businesses on, yeah, it's not just enough to have a Google business profile anymore. There's this whole other tier of things you need to, get involved in if you're really going to get the exposure you want. So the biggest challenge is there's a lot of things that business owners don't know are available to them. For the insurance agents, Google just rolled out LSA for insurance agencies in California and Florida. They're going to roll it out across the rest of the country this year. Most insurance agents don't even know that exists. So, that's a point of education that we're having to educate them on. And then with AI, people think that ChatGPT is just, I go out and tell it to write, a letter for me, or I go out and tell it to write an ad for me. And the ad is always, campy, and it has goofy emojis, and it always says elevate or transform, or, uses all these overused words. And they don't really understand the true capacity and impact that using AI in their marketing, their processes, their operations can really make on their business. And so I think some of the challenges really come down to education and educating not just the business owner, but even the agency owner. I think there's a lot of fear that, if we bring AI in, it's going to replace us. Well, no. But what is going to happen is the agency that doesn't know how to utilize AI is going to get left in the dirt. It's not that you're going to get replaced by AI. It's that if you don't know how to implement it and use it to your advantage, you're going to get left behind. The agencies that have already figured that out are going to be so far ahead of you by the time you figure it out, you'll be playing catch up. And so I think that's the biggest challenge in the marketplace. I think the other big challenge in the marketplace right now is, we're still dealing with a lot of financial challenges that I don't think we've seen the end of. So like in the remodeling industry, although interest rates have come down, we're dealing with material shortages, labor shortages, things like that do affect those companies. And so as a marketer, I'm having to help them think through, how do we pace your business now? It's not just about how do I generate lead flow, but I've got to pace your lead flow so that you're not backlogged for a year. I've got to pace your lead flow so that you've got materials available when the jobs are coming up. For the insurance agents in California, the insurance company that I won't name again, that we just talked about, they can't write certain policies. So as a marketer, I'm having to help them figure out, well, how do I keep you in business if we can't even market a third of the things that your company normally offers? So those are some of the challenges that I think we're having to start to think through as marketers that maybe we didn't have to think through before, is the realities of what businesses are facing. They're going through, problems that maybe they didn't have to deal with before. And we're having to help them navigate things that maybe aren't necessarily marketing issues. They're business challenges, but they are going to affect the way we market.
Right. I feel like you're always like one step ahead. I'm loving this.
Well, good. Thank you.
Yeah. And also, so you just answered two of the four questions that I have left of how you see things evolving in the future and what would be some advice. So you just knocked it up. Maybe you're made for this.
Maybe that's what I'm made for.
Well, speaking of growing times, remote has become very, very lucrative in a company. And that was one of the reasons that you started doing what you do. So you have a remote company and it's globally distributed based on the people and where. I'm not going to locate them. You can if you want to. But how do you keep that culture alive? And how do you maintain a strong team? And while you're working over those time zones and cultures and conversations?
Yeah, first of all, just, people are people no matter where you go in the world. And if you care about people, you can build an amazing team. And so I always put that at the forefront. I care about my people. I care about what's going on in their lives. I care about their families. And so they know that I take a personal interest in them. Now, I have a global team, and I have gone, and done some extra steps that not everybody's able to do. I have traveled to the other side of the world to see team members in person and spend time with them. And so that's something I've built in, and that has meant the world to them, taking candy to their kids and things like that. So I'll give you a great example. I've got one of my team members in the other side of the world. His daughter has celiac disease, and so can only have certain kinds of candy. And so I brought her certain kind of candy last year. And so I'm the guy that brings candy, and so I'm her favorite boss, and so that's.
I mean, everybody wants to be the kid's favorite boss.
Yeah, everybody's favorite boss, and so things like that are meaningful. We have a dream board on our ClickUp channels, so we actually have a dream channel where everybody. I had them put a vision board. What is the dream you're working towards? Why are you here? And so we keep tabs on that. Where are you at on this dream? Because our objective is to help you achieve that. We also had everybody name what is the charitable cause in your region that you want to support. So out of our profits, we're going to contribute a portion of profits to that charitable cause in your region, and you're going to be the one to deliver that, take ownership of that. So as a company, we're doing those things together. Then the other thing we do is about 3 times a year, we do a virtual staff retreat. And so we'll take a half day, 2 days together, and we'll cancel all the client appointments, and we just spend 2 days online doing virtual team building. So we'll do some icebreaker exercises, we'll do some team training. We'll spend time talking about, what are we working on personally, fitness, health, family, all of those kinds of things, vision casting, and just really build camaraderie. And then the thing we do weekly that really helps is we do a weekly team meeting. But then the other thing we do, and I shared this with you on our call, Kenzie, and I'll put this in front of everybody as well, because I think it's one of the strongest things we do, is we actually take a client account every week. Healthy or non-healthy, doesn't matter. I don't tell the team what it is, which client it is, and we pick it apart top to bottom. We pull it off the shelf, we break it apart. Here's the client, here's their objectives, here's a map of where they're at, here's the surrounding cities, here's their competition, here's all the services that we provide to them, here's how they're performing on their ads, their SEO, here's what their social media looks like. Here's where they're weak, here's where they're strong. Good or bad, it is what it is. And it allows us to look at where we're performing well, where we're not performing well. Sometimes we find things we've overlooked. Sometimes we find things that we're doing just extremely well, and we can say, hey, good job, team. But what it's done is it's raised the value of what we provide to our clients, but it's also raised the level of strategy in all of our team members. So now they're all thinking more strategically. They're not just specialists in their own little area of specialization. they're all starting to look at things big picture, which is what I wanted them to do. Is you have to think like that business owner. So don't just look at this client as an SEO person or as a paid ads person. You need to think like that business owner. What are they trying to accomplish? And when you look at their data, is it performing the way they want it to perform, not the way you want it to perform? And so just because they got, a click-through rate of 4%, they don't care. Are those converting clicks? Are they getting what they want out of this? And so being able to do that has raised the bar on the team. It's raised the level of deliverable that we're providing, and been probably one of the best things we've ever done as a team.
I think that builds so much like strength, and like even though you're breaking it down, it's still building you up. It's supportive. I really enjoy that. It's amazing. So what would you say is the most challenging thing when somebody comes to you and tries to combat whether or not SEO is important for them? I know that's super like simple baseline, but for people that aren't agencies listening, that might be useful.
Yeah, I always combat it from a return on investment standpoint. And I always want to address it this way, that your best leads will always come through SEO. And here's why. Because they're the people doing research. And SEO is generally a content-driven lead, which means they are reading an article, they're watching a video, they are consuming some form of content. And a content consumption lead is generally deeper in the sales funnel, whereas an ad clicking lead is generally somebody who's higher up in the funnel. Often they are in the price shopper side of the equation, or they are in the early stage of consideration. And so because that SEO lead is further down in the funnel, they're a stronger lead. The other piece of that is the residual value of that SEO lead. So if I put that piece of content out, it's out there for years. And I always give a conversational point to a business owner. I have a side business that I run, that I have run now for 15 years, actually 16 years, that runs off of 8 YouTube videos that I recorded in 2009. I've never done anything else with it. I get a check in the bank every month from that business. And all I ever did was record 9 videos on YouTube. They get traffic every month, pays a check every month. It's residual marketing. Cost me nothing. And so that's the value of SEO, and that's what I always stress to business owners. On a paid ad campaign, once you've paid for that click, it's done and gone. You're going to have to pay for the next one. Whereas that blog post, that video, it's got a shelf life that's going to last. And so it can be clicked and clicked again and clicked again and clicked again tomorrow and next year and next month and 2 years down the road. It's got a long shelf life. In fact, right now it's kind of fun. I've got a blog that I've had for 16 years, and I let it sit dormant for the last 4 years, and I decided to start playing with it again this month. And the only thing I'm doing to resurrect it is new content, and I'm posting those new blog posts to LinkedIn and Facebook. And in the first 3 weeks, my traffic count is already 400 unique users. So content is highly effective. I haven't had to spend any money to resurrect it, but I brought 400 people to an offer just by creating new content. So that's the power of SEO, and that's always the conversation I have with the business owner. You know, there are quicker ways. You can always spend money and drive traffic with ads, but the long-term play, the residual marketing piece is always going to be your SEO, and it's always going to be a stronger lead.
Right. And they work so hand in hand together, because if you don't have good SEO, then, the data bugs, if you will, won't find you for the paid ad. So it's working all together. And then you also add in retargeting. So people that were on your website interacting but haven't converted yet, then they go right back to the top of the funnel by being served a retargeting ad. And that brings them right back because they've known you and they've actually researched you. So having all these multiple touch points and making sure that you're using all of them effectively and not opting out one or the other is super, super important. And starting maybe from the bottom and growing to the top that's how you scale up a business.
Sure is. Sure is.
Absolutely. So how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about Simplicity Marketing?
Yeah, so the easiest way to connect with me is you can go to simplicitymarketingllc.com. You can also follow me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and just look for Carl Willis at either of those places. I'm easy to find. I also have a Carl Willis YouTube channel. You can find me there. But simplicitymarketingllc.com will also lead you to our 2 agencies. And so it's a great place to kind of get started, and it'll point you in the right direction.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Carl, this has been such a great conversation. You are such a joy and really, really ahead of the game. I love how you are always a step ahead and try to implement AI where you can, and you understand the algorithm. And I can tell that you have such a passion for this, which makes a successful campaign if someone were to run with you. So, I know I get to wake up every morning and be excited to help people, and I can tell you feel the same way. So it's
Very
great
much
to have
so.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Kenzie. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on, and it's been a joy talking with the audience today.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone listening who wants to learn more about Carl and the Simplicity Marketing LLC, like he mentioned, go to simplicitymarketingllc.com or find him on LinkedIn, YouTube, and he'll be there with his smiling little face.
All right. Thanks, Kenzie.
Yeah, thank you.